Hello and welcome back to the Bookshelf Odyssey podcast and our deep dive into Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Well, we're getting close to the end of our story. As you might be able to pick up, the neighbors are mowing their lawn, but I just had to get this recorded today, so hopefully the noise isn't that distracting. A couple of announcements here before we get going. By next Saturday, we will have finished reading Great Expectations. I have had to tweak the reading schedule a little bit over the past few weeks, and I'm going to tweak it a bit again today. But never fear, we will finish on time. Just because of how much plot happens between now and the end of the book. I had thought about doing 3 parts today and then 3 parts next week, but I'm going to go ahead and divide that up and do just chapters 51 through 53 today. And then on Wednesday or Thursday, I'll have another video out. I'll cover chapters 54 and 56, or through 56. And then Saturday will be the final chapters 57 through 59. And then that will also give me some time to wrap up the book as a whole and reflect on that. Thinking about what was left to go in this book, I just didn't want these videos to be really long, and they would have been, and maybe you're fine with longer videos, but I kind of I've been trying to keep them a little bit shorter, just to make them a little more manageable. I do want to thank you for, again, engaging in the comments. We've had a couple of comments over this past week, especially Deborah over at Bookin with Deborah on her YouTube channel. Thank you for your just kind thoughts and good thoughts. She was reflecting on how Wemmick seems to be living this double life, which really comes into play with our chapters today, as well as Pip's feelings for Estella. She thinks they might be more obsessional than actual love. And I think Deborah's right on that, but we'll explore that a little bit in the chapters we have today, and we'll see how the book ends, if it comes back to it at all. Deborah also mentions that for the last section we looked at, she said, I loved how Dickens portrayed Herbert and Pip's friendship when he is caring for his burns. It's really good to see a male friendship portrayed in this way such a long time ago. The plot goes bonkers at this point of the book. It's great how everything starts to come together and is all interconnected. Dickens could write some great dramas for modern day TV. And I think Pip has really started to mature and appreciate the really important things in life. And I absolutely agree with that, Deborah. Some really great thoughts there. To me, especially, Pip and Herbert's relationship is one of compassion, one of genuine love and affection. I think there is room for a story that explores male friendship like this, that us guys, often we have trouble expressing our feelings and emotions for whatever reason. And I like this when I see it. And in some ways, this reminds me a bit of the relationship of like Frodo and Sam in The Lord of the Rings. That I don't see that one as a romantic relationship, but I see it as one of friendship and of deep brotherhood and of genuine love. You know, Pip has been saying that he loves Estella, that he loves her, and all he's received from her is coldness and hurt. But here, Herbert is, I think, actually demonstrating genuine love to Pip, that he's caring for him, he's being gentle, he's being sacrificial in some ways, that he is willing to help Pip accomplish his task with saving his uncle, his uncle, Provis. And I think Herbert is actually demonstrating genuine love. So again, if you have any thoughts on that, let me know. And then Adrian, another reader of ours, also commented, and they said, wow, this was a fantastic section. I never expected to find out who Estella's mother is. I did suspect that her father is Magwitch. Dickens wove a brilliant plot like a spider's web. Pip's character's growth is evident in his more introspective and forgiving attitude. He will have to reevaluate what his expectations are now. And she also picks up on one of the lessons of the story, to be careful what you wish for. And I think that's really a good lesson for this book. Some great thoughts there. Thank you, ladies, for chiming in on that. And really appreciate your thoughts. All right, let's get into our chapters and find out where the plot takes us next. Part 31 covers chapters 51 and 52, and we find that Pip is hungry for answers. He's had these revelations about Estella's background, so he goes to Mr. Jaggers to see if he can get any answers or confirmation. He begs Wemmick and Jaggers for information, and admits that he wants to know because he still cares for Estella, even though she's married to somebody else. Jaggers pretty much blows him off. I think he might be wondering what Pip wants to do with that information. Does he want to reveal it to the public or not? But finally, Pip appeals to Wemmick's compassion and reveals, that you have a home away from this office. You have an aged parent that you care for. He says, I know you're a man of compassion. Tell me the truth. He says, Wemmick, I know you to be a man with a gentle heart. I have seen your pleasant home and your old father, and all the innocent, cheerful, playful ways with which you refresh your business life. And I entreat you to say a word for me to Mr. Jaggers, and to represent to him that, all circumstances considered, he ought to be more open with me. Which this information surprises Jaggers, and now their relationship is kind of strained a little bit because Pip revealed this about Wemmick. Finally, Jaggers does confess all that he knows, and pretty much confirms everything that Pip suspected. But Jaggers swears them to secrecy, that it would be better for this information not to get out. And we see a little bit of a softer side of Jaggers, that he wants to save this child of Molly, I think it was his servant's name. I imagine he has seen so many people growing up and corrupted and in prison and all that he thinks that maybe this one will have a chance to avoid that fate. And so he tells her, he says that if you are saved, your child will be saved too. So he convinces Molly to give up her daughter for adoption, and he'll take her case. Molly is saved, and then her daughter will be saved. But if she is not saved, if she is found guilty, at least her daughter still will have been saved. And so we get, I think, a little bit of humanity we find here in Jaggers, which I think is good. Maybe he's not all bad. And here's what I love about Dickens' characters is that they can be very layered. And I think we're finding some layers here to Mr. Jaggers. So Jaggers swears them to secrecy, says it'll be better if this information does not get out. They agree to it. I think Pip just wants to know to rest his mind so that he knows the truth of what's happened. Things between Jaggers and Wemmick are still a bit strained now that Jaggers has found out that Wemmick could be this completely different person. When, fortunately, another customer comes in, a client named Mike, who says that he's the client with the fur cap and the habit of wiping his nose on his sleeve, whom I had seen on the very first day of my appearance within those walls. And so Jaggers and Wemmick again find common ground on treating poor Mike with some disdain. And I like this quote that he says, Wemmick says, "How dare you? You are not in a fit state to come in here. If you can't come here without sputtering like a bad pen, what do you mean by it?" And Jaggers, he says, "A man can't help his feelings." And Jaggers says, "I'll have no feelings in here. Get out." And it seems like they're able to go back to their old selves with one another by ganging up on this poor fella named Mike. We know that Wemmick, I think, will continue to be a gentle man with a good heart, but they're able to reestablish their understanding with each other. And I think at least to let Jaggers know that Wemmick is not going to go all soft on him and will be able to do the jobs that he needs him to do. So that ends chapter 51. It's sad that here we see that Wemmick is not able to show his gentleness, his genuineness, and his gentleness with Jaggers, and as he works for Jaggers, that he has to have this hard exterior about him. And then I'm thinking about what Pip did in revealing the truth of Wemmick to Jaggers, and was that a good thing or not? Or was that a kind thing to do or not? I'm not sure. I think it resulted in him getting the truth, but Wemmick did in a sense, want Pip to keep that part of his life separate. So I think that's worth thinking about. I'm not sure what answer I would come up with there, to be honest. But Pip does reveal that information. We get to chapter 52, and Pip then goes and fulfills his secret promise, wanting to support Herbert. So he goes and brings the money he received from his Havisham to Herbert's employment, and they reveal to him that they've got plans to send Herbert over to the Middle East, to Egypt and different areas of that to help run his business there. And Pip is delighted for his friend, but will miss him. And Herbert still has no idea that Pip is the one who is his secret benefactor. And again, I love this duality in the story, that somebody is helping to support and provide for Pip. And it turns out that that man was a criminal, but now Pip is able to help and support Herbert secretly and to do it in a good way. Then we get Pip gets a letter from Wemmick that basically says, hey, it's time to go. Wednesday is the day. They're going to bring Startop into the plan. And then Pip receives another note, a very mysterious note that says, basically, come to the marshes, come to the sluice house, and do it tonight or tomorrow by 9. And if you want information about Provis, you better come. You must come alone. Bring this with you. We don't know who it's from. We don't know what information it is. Just, Pip, you need to come to the marshes now. And Pip goes, plans to go. He stops at a different inn. He hears his own story being told in the town of a young man who received a big fortune from Mr. Pumblechook, which didn't happen, and how this young man continues to ignore Mr. Pumblechook and treat him poorly. And Mr. Pumblechook is telling everyone what a jerk this young boy has been. And Pip realizes it's him. And he doesn't care about that so much because Mr. Pumblechook is lying, but he feels guilty because he knows that I have treated Joe and Biddy that way, and they haven't complained to anyone at all about it, and I don't deserve them. So he feels guilty about that. He goes out into the night to meet this mysterious stranger at the sluice house in the marshes. So who is he going to meet, and what happens when he gets there? Original readers would have to wait a whole week to find out, because that brings us to the end of chapter 52 and part 31 that was published on June 29th, 1861. I would be sitting on the edge of my seat waiting for the next installment, and here we really see the genius of writing this episodic novel, and that Dickens is able to keep the plot going and keep us engaged in the plot until these revelations come. So let's go ahead and look into chapter 53 and what happens next. This chapter, to me, feels like a chapter you would find in a murder mystery. You know, some kind of more of an action-adventure kind of mystery where the bad guy reveals himself to the hero and has him tied up and everything, because that's what happens here. Chapter 3 opens with this quote, "It was a dark night, though the full moon rose as I left the enclosed lands and passed out upon the marshes. Beyond their dark line there was a ribbon of clear sky, hardly broad enough to hold a red large moon. In a few minutes she had ascended out of that clear field, in among the piled mountains of cloud. There was a melancholy wind, and the marshes were very dismal." And he almost turned back because of how miserable things were. So here, instead of it being a dark and stormy night, it was just a dark and miserable night. And Pip goes alone to meet whoever it was that sent him this letter. When he gets to the sluice house, he is attacked and tied up, and he cries out in pain because of his injured arm. And then as the man who attacked him and tied him up lights a fire, it is revealed that it is none other than Orlick. Orlick then goes on to do the villain monologue thing, where he reveals his dastardly plan, such as it was, but not really. He reveals to him that Orlick was the one who had attacked Mrs. Joe and injured her and ended up killing her. Orlick did it because he was jealous of Pip and the attention that he received, Pip received from Joe and from Mrs. Joe, and that he was always considered to be their favorite, and that Pip then made things difficult for Orlick. Orlick talks about how he often Pip would get him fired and different things from Miss Havisham's and from the Forge and from all these places. And so Orlick is angry and he's going to have his revenge. And it turns out also that Orlick knows all about Magwitch and was the one who was hiding on the stairs that night. He had been following Pip. Orlick is going to kill Pip, and he's trying to work up the courage to do it through getting himself drunker and drunker. And as Orlick moves in to strike the fatal blow, in comes Pip's rescuers, Herbert, Startop, and Trab's boy. They were able to protect Pip, chased off Orlick. Orlick runs off into the marshes. Pip finds out that Herbert discovered Pip's letter. It had dropped out of his pocket as he was leaving, and Herbert, being the good and loyal friend that he is, put two and two together and were able to find him and trace him down to this house, to where he's at. It turns out, though Pip is delirious, there is still a day or so for Pip to recover, and the plan is still on to have Magwitch flee the country on Wednesday morning. And that's where we leave off with chapter 53. A lot of action in this chapter, more action than I would normally read in a Dickens novel, I think. Things happen, but this is like actual action, like I said, a mystery unveiling and the enemy is fought with. It really felt like something out of a mystery novel. And these following chapters will kind of carry on that tension in that as the plot continues to be unveiled, and we'll find out next week what happens next to our gang. So again, as always, I want to know what you think of those chapters. Let's see, any revelations that have come. Essentially, just Estella's parentage has been confirmed. The big revelation then would be that Orlick was the one who attacked Mrs. Joe, and he's been secretly following Pip over all this time, angry and jealous of him, and finally has worked up the courage to try to take him out of the picture. Oh, there was one quote I wanted to bring out. In chapter 53, as Pip is tied up and Orlick is explaining the plan for him, that he's going to kill him and burn up his body and no one will know what's happened to him, he says, "The death close before me was terrible, but far more terrible than death was the dread of being misremembered after death. And so quick were my thoughts that I saw myself despised by unborn generation, Estella's children and their children, while the wretch's words were yet on his lips." So Pip's fear here is not even so much of death, but fear of being misremembered. And I wonder if that's what's motivating future Pip to write his story, is so that he would not be misremembered and that they would understand the true story of what happened to him. Maybe he's writing this story so that the people of his town will know that it wasn't Mr. Pumblechook that was the source of his property, and it wasn't Mr. Pumblechook that he was treating unfairly, and that he wants the truth of the story to come out, even though it might not paint him in a good light. And now years later, he's writing this so that he would not be misremembered after he dies. Maybe there's a little bit of pride in that, but I can't say I blame him for doing that. If there are people who accused you falsely of something or thought you did something wicked, but you want to clear the air, as it were, or set the record straight, I could see doing that. Like, here's what really happened. And yes, I wasn't perfect, but here are my circumstances. Here was my motivation. So it will help you to understand why I did what I did, and also give me space to express my grief and to seek forgiveness from those whom I have hurt. So I was wondering if maybe that would be the motivation for Pip in writing his story. So let me know what you think of this week's revelations. If maybe you think that could be what is motivating Pip to tell a story. Where do you think the story is going next? If you haven't read it before. I can't wait to see your reactions, and we're going to have a lot to talk about this week. So do your reading for this first part of this week. Wednesday or Thursday will come chapters 54 through 56. And then Saturday, we'll wrap up with chapters 57 through 59 and some final thoughts on the book. And then I might have a plan to, in a week or so after that, do kind of an overview episode. I've got an idea for a guest I want to have on to talk about this book, so we'll maybe have a plan to do that. I know some of you have already asked, and I've received even an email from someone asking about what we're going to do next. And I do want to plan to do something. A couple months from now, we'll probably start on a new book. I'd love to hear your ideas and suggestions. If you want to write in, email, comment, message me if you have an idea of a book you'd like to read together next. It can be an old classic. It can be a modern classic. I have some ideas. I'd love to do a group reading of a Ray Bradbury story or collection or novel. That's what I've been thinking about doing. It's a little more modern, but I love Bradbury's work so much. But I'm pretty open to where we go next. So if you have an idea, let me know. And so for now, I hope that you are doing well, that you're able to enjoy some beautiful weather today. And so until next time, happy reading and take care.